Today, I'm so excited to be able to share with you 5 new Christmas Dollar Tree DIYs for 2019. I'm really curious if you will be able to pinpoint which of these Christmas crafts happens to be my favorite. Hi and welcome if you are new. My name is Jennifer and this is a little bit of Calm and Crazy. I'm excited to share with you that today's video is sponsored by Top Cashback. I don't know about you, but if I can shop online and get a little extra money in my pocket, I am all for it, and that is exactly what happens when you use Top Cashback. It's a website that gives you a percentage of what you spend shopping online back to you. You just go to their website, set up an account by giving them an email address, creating your password. They have over 4,000 different retailers they work with. A couple of my favorite retailers that you can find on Top Cashback would be like Old Navy, Kohl's, Amazon, Walmart, and American Eagle. I have a 13-year-old boy that is tall and skinny, and the jeans that fit him are online only. So if I can get a little bit of that money back, I am absolutely going to do it. First, all you have to do is go to Top Cashback and then sign into your account. After that, you just type in the store and it will reroute you to that store. And then you shop like normal. So let's go ahead and move on to the 4 tips about shopping on DollarTree.com. First, when you shop on DollarTree.com, always go to pick and pack. I don't know about you, but I don't necessarily want to buy things in large quantities. And with pick and pack, you don't have to. Almost everything is in quantities of 3 to 6, and mostly it's in quantities of 4, and they carry items from holiday to daily things. So that is the very first place I always look. Tip number 2, ship to store. Unless Dollar Tree is having a really amazing shipping deal, which they could this time of year, I always ship to store because their shipping rates can be a little sky high. Tip number 3. If you can't find it in store, go online. So many times I hear people tell me that their Dollar Tree never carries the things that they see in hauls. Of course, go online, and even if you have to order it in that large bulk item, don't worry about it, because you can pick the number of those that you want and return the rest to your store. Now, you're not going to get cash back because that is not what happens at Dollar Tree. You will only be able to exchange it for more Dollar Tree products. But if you're anything like me, there's always a few things at Dollar Tree that I'm able to exchange it for. And tip number 4, think ahead. Dollar Tree always posts online before it even hits the stores. So if you want to know what they're going to be carrying in stores, you can go online first and see. Believe it or not, they're already starting to put some of their Valentine's things out. Yes, they are. And you better believe I snagged me some Valentine's ribbon. Did I need to? Probably not. But did I want to make sure that I got the ribbon I wanted? Yes, I did. So I went ahead and I snagged it. So if you ever see anything that you really want at Dollar Tree, remember, don't hesitate, don't wait, grab it, because more than likely it will not be there the next time you come and look. Now let's go ahead and move on to the 5 projects that I have for you. I was able to pick up these larger ornament signs using the pick and pack on Dollar Tree. So I'm going to go ahead and show you 2 different ways that I decorated these 2, and then in the end I will show you 2 more ways of decorating these. I absolutely think these are adorable the way that they are, but it's always fun to change things up and have different options. So to start off with, I grabbed a couple sheets of paper. I always get my paper at Hobby Lobby because I can get it for $1. There is a little bit of prep work before I can go and attach the paper onto the ornament. So to begin with, I am taking this putty knife, paint scraper, whatever you want to call it. I did get this from Dollar Tree. They also carry a smaller one. And I'm just taking it in and sliding it underneath that metal top of the ornament and trying to be as careful as possible so that I'm not bending that metal. The metal is kind of thin. I'm not as concerned about the cardboardy sign underneath as I am the metal, because I will be attaching these tops back on to the sign in the end. So I want to make sure that I keep them intact. After that, I do go in with my sandpaper and I sand off any of the glitter, basically any of the texture that will prevent the paper from laying flat and not getting any ripples and bubbles. And it's not too much. It's basically where you see the white and the glitter. That's really the only part that I'm sanding off. And then I just wipe them down quickly before that I can go in with some Mod Podge. I just add a thin coat of Mod Podge all the way around the ornament. Notice I'm not going up to the very top because I'm not planning on putting the paper up there, but I am going around the circular part of the ornament itself. So any place where I plan on placing the paper down, and I'm just doing that really thin coat all the way around it, and then I go and lay the paper where I want it, and I just smooth it out with my hands. Now there are some things that you can get that will help you smooth it out. I've actually had a friend ask me why I don't use that, and that's because I feel like I can do a better job with my hands. My hands can really feel the texture, and I know that I'm making sure that I get any bubbles or ripples out with my hands. So I just like to go in with my hands. It's a preferred method of mine. Again, do what you're most comfortable with. I have found the best success doing it this way, and if it's not broken, don't fix it. Once the paper dries, I like to go in with a 60 grit sandpaper in order to remove the paper. I love this technique, and if you haven't tried it, I really encourage you to try it. All you have to do is take your sandpaper and you just take it around your edges, taking it back and forth. If you have a little tricky edge that doesn't want to come undone, then you can take your sandpaper and you can sand away from your paper, and that will take care of that. Make sure that you are not sanding up towards your paper because that could lift up your edge. I just think that it gives the cleanest cut, even better than like using scissors or a craft knife when you go in with the sandpaper. It really just does such a beautiful job. Now I'm going in with Waverly's chalk paint in Elephant and White, as well as the Wax and Antique to give more of a galvanized rust look on this very shiny metal. I love taking cosmetic sponge to do this. You can get like a pack of them for just like $1, and they do such a beautiful job. This is such an easy technique, but I'll tell you, the very first time I ever did it, I was a little intimidated by it, but it really is just one of those things that's not perfect, and it comes out looking just perfect in my opinion. This is definitely one of those things that is a personal preference. So I like to start off using the Elephant, and that kind of tones down the shiny metal. And Elephant is such a beautiful, just a deeper, warmer gray. And I just go in and I just dab that on all over. And then I go in with the white, and that adds in some more brightness and reflection. And I don't completely cover up the shiny metal. I still let some of that show through. So once I have Elephant and White on there, the very last thing that I do is I go in with the wax, and I like to put that on the edges and then maybe in a few other high edges, and that gives it the rust look. And these three colors together on that shiny metal, I think really make for a very rusty galvanized look. Once those dry, I went ahead and I'm attaching them back onto this ornament signs. Now here I am playing around with different glues and just trying to figure out what it is I really like. And so I'm using the gel super glue. You guys, my fingers were just sticking together. Honestly, depending on what you really want, I would just do hot glue or some E6000. And I will explain a little bit more how I use the E6000 later on in the video. Now you can leave the signs the way they are right here, or you can go ahead and do the next step and dress them up a little bit more by using the words that I got from these next two signs. Now I'm removing them again, just like I did the top. As you can see that part of the letters are lifted off, they're not adhered down onto the sign. So I just take the paint scraper and go underneath and just edge my way around, finding any which way that I can lift these up, trying to be as gentle as I can. So after you get both of your words, I decided, of course, to go with that whole rustic theme again, and so I did the exact same painting technique that I had done earlier with the tops. I went in with the same three paint colors, first using Elephant to kind of get rid of that shiny color, then going in with some white to kind of brighten and add another layer of depth. And then of course you got to have a little bit of rust, so I had to use the antique wax as well on the edges. And again, I thought these looked so great. But there are so many options you can do with these and so many different color palettes. You can leave these the way that they are. You can paint them a solid color in a different color if you choose. Honestly, the options are endless, and you can do whatever matches your decor. I am just trying to give you a little inspiration. Once I had everything painted and it was dried, now I could go in and attach them onto my ornaments. I am using the hot glue gun here with the Let It Snow because I'm able to add like a little bit of chunkier parts of hot glue, and the hot glue is not setting up before I'm able to get it on. With the Jingle All the Way, I went in again with that gel super glue. Bad idea. Again, I will show you how I would have rather done it with the E6000. I actually don't even have the footage of using the super glue. Just be grateful. It was just a bad idea altogether. After I got done with that, I am going in with a dry brush and a little bit of that antique wax and going around the edges. And I think that this was absolutely the perfect finishing touch to these ornaments. I just really love how that brought everything together. I absolutely adore both of these. I just think they are just so pretty and rustic. I just can't wait to have these out for Christmas. You can either just make one of them or of course have both of them. They're great to have on display. You could put them in a tree if you like to have larger ornaments. There are so many possibilities for these. Don't forget, I will have a complete supply list for you in the description box below so that you can check that out. For my second project, I am using this Joy to the World sign that I also picked up, of course, at Dollar Tree. I start by removing the burlap on the bottom of it. Now, I saw somewhere that somebody put on like a wet towel in order to like loosen that up in order to get that off. I did try that. I didn't find that that really helped me. I might have been doing something wrong, so if you have more of a tip for me, by all means, I am open to tips. So once I had that off, I went ahead and I did a little sanding, mainly just to get that extra adhesive off. I find that removing the burlap and getting the adhesive off is never too hard on signs like this. And so I really wanted to just try to make this area smooth because I knew that I would be painting it. I also wanted to go ahead and remove some of the glitter on the word joy. I knew I was not going to get rid of all of it, but I wanted to try to get rid of kind of a little bit of that top layer, the part of the glitter that seems to want to fall off and leave a trail behind itself everywhere you go. That was the glitter that I wanted to remove from the sign. If it was still there in the end, like the part that really wanted to stay on, I wasn't going to bother with that glitter. Now I'm going in with Waverly's chalk paint in ink. It's just their black chalk paint, and it is a beautiful black, and it covers so well. I knew that I was going to be covering up this rectangle part and creating kind of like a faux chalkboard. And then as I was painting, I then decided, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and cover the entire thing in black. And I wasn't quite sure exactly how it would work on top of the glitter on the word joy, but it did such a beautiful job. I absolutely love it. And believe it or not, up close, it doesn't even look textured from the glitter at all. I was really surprised. While I had the black chalk paint out, I went ahead and I took these 2 paint sticks. They come in a pack of 3. I get them at Home Depot for just under $1. I cut off the handles and then I painted them black, and let me show you why. I have the 2 sign bases for my previous project and I don't want them to go to waste. So I'm taking them and I'm going to be placing them together to make one larger sign. And I'm using those 2 paint sticks in order to secure those. If you've been around, you know that I like my projects to look finished, and that means front and back. So let me show you how I'm using those paint sticks. I'm starting off by taking some wood glue in between the 2 signs in order to secure them that way, and then just pressing them together, and then I just wipe off any extra that I have. After that, I take my paint stick and I place them where I kind of want them, and I take wood glue onto the unfinished side because that's the side that will be facing the sign itself, so nobody's going to see that sign. As you see, I always kind of smear in my wood glue to help me not hopefully have too much of it oozing out. I tend to go a little bit heavy-handed with my glue at times. You don't need this much. I just tend to have an issue. And that will be the back of my sign. Now let's finish the front of it. After my wood glue dried, I did go in with Waverly's chalk paint in white and completely paint the front of the sign. Now, it did take a couple of coats, especially because of that red, but it did a beautiful job covering. Now, I do have that one little area that didn't cover quite as well because some of the paper got kind of ripped off, but that's okay because it's going to be covered up with the Joy to the World. You won't even see it once it's all done, so I'm not too concerned about it. Once my white paint was completely dried, I went in with a Sharpie and a flat edge. Anytime I'm doing like a faux shiplap kind of look, I love using a Sharpie because it helps me get a really clean line. I'm not as neat using paint to do this, so this is kind of my foolproof way of doing it. So I just lay out my straight edge and I just draw my lines, and I'm letting the board kind of guide me with the ridges that it has in order to know where to place those lines. The great thing about using a Sharpie also is I can go in with like a 220 grit sandpaper and sand over them, and they will still kind of fade away. It won't stay really strong and harsh, and I like that about using the Sharpie. As you can see, I went in with pencil first and I kind of sketched out or wrote out "to the world" using the very faintest outline that was left behind that I didn't quite get rid of when I went in with the sandpaper, as well as using the burlap as a guide. And I think that will be such an easy way for me to go over. All I have to do now is grab my white paint pen, trace over it, and bada bing, bada boom. After that, I decided I also needed to go around and outline all of my letters. Now, honestly, the hardest part of outlining the letters was between the O and the Y, and so I kind of skipped that part at first and decided I would just come back to that until I knew exactly where I wanted to put the line. So I just kept working around the areas that I knew for sure where I wanted the white line to go. And you'll see how I do that in just a second. Like I mentioned, I cannot freehand anything. So I took the opposite side of the O and I did a little bit of a sketch and cut out the curve, and then I used that to draw on or sketch out the curved, and then I just penciled it in and then went over it with my white paint pen. It was that easy. The last thing I did was take my paint pen and I went around the rectangle in order to kind of define that and outline that a little bit, and I think that really did make a really big difference as well. I love the white on the black. I think it looks so good. To attach Joy to the World to my sign base, I'm going in with some wood glue. I absolutely love using wood glue for wood on wood, and I think it looks great. I love the black and white again together, but I do think it needs just a tad pop of color. So I decided to go in with a little bit of these picks that I got. The pick came from Hobby Lobby. It was $1.50. The little red berries came from Dollar Tree. I used some wire cutters and just trimmed a tiny bit off of each one of them in order to use them on the sign. I also took some burlap and some twine from Dollar Tree in order to make a small little bow. I just take my burlap and I fold it over, and then I take my twine and I wrap it around a few times and then tie a knot in order to cinch in that center to get that bow shape. I use hot glue in order to secure down the picks. Now I use quite a bit right at the very top of it because I will be covering that area up with the bow, so I'm not as concerned, but to make sure that they stay nice and secure, I will be adding hot glue in a couple other very careful places. I did decide to go in with one more pine cone and add that on. I just felt like it added just a tiny bit more balance to the sign. I really love the sign. I just think it is so pretty. It's absolutely something I think that you could find in a store like Kirkland's or Home Goods. I really love the added element of the red and green picks on there. I just absolutely adore this sign. For my last two projects, I will be using my last two large ornament signs. Because the techniques are similar, I'm going to go ahead and show you how I did them at the same time. This time I chose to use fabric in order to cover up the ornaments. The gray and white is actually a baby blanket that of course you can find in the baby section at Dollar Tree. And then the red one is actually a dishcloth, and it comes in a pack of 2. As part of my prep work, I do go ahead and I cut the baby blanket to the size that I want. I always tend to cut a little extra large just to make sure that I have all my bases covered. With the dishcloth, I needed to go ahead and cut that little white mesh that was on the inside of it. Now this was a teeny bit tedious because you just have to get the little point of your scissors inside of there so that you don't poke through on the other side. Technically, let me be honest, you could actually go around and just take the edges off of the red dishcloth, but I didn't want this to start fraying yet, so I went ahead and took the time to do it this way instead. Now it is time to prep your ornaments. Just like I did in the first couple of projects, you need to remove your tops, and you will be using them again, so you want to be careful just using the paint scraper and sliding it under and wiggling until they pop off. Then after that, I did go in with sandpaper and go ahead and get rid of the glitter. Not probably as necessary as it was with using it with paper because the fabric will cover up a little bit more of the texture, but I still wanted to go ahead and do it. I decided to go ahead and give each of the ornaments a base coat of paint because when I laid down, especially the red washcloth, because of the lines on it, you can see the white shining through. As you can see with the white, I went a little heavy-handed on the paint and I'm having to wipe off some of this extra. Luckily, it's fine in the end, but oh man, I'm not sure exactly what I was thinking, but yeah, it's just paint. It's fine. With the red one, I went ahead in with a red paint because this is the one that I'm putting the red washcloth on, and it was the Let It Snow particularly that was showing through when I tested it out beforehand. Once the paint completely dried, now it's time to start the fun. So I'm adding some Mod Podge to each one of the ornaments so that I can start applying the fabric. Just like I do with the paper, I like to have a thin coat on the back side or on the ornament itself. Now, the fabric will absorb, and I guess so does the paper, but the fabric does absolutely absorb your Mod Podge. And because of that, I actually like to go in and add the Mod Podge on top of the fabric as well. Now, this 100% changes the texture of the fabric and makes it stiff. You lose that softness. If that bothers you, do not put the Mod Podge on top. Keep it on the bottom. But what can happen, because it can absorb in different spots depending on how your Mod Podge is. And you might have one spot that's really hard and one spot that's really soft, and it won't be consistent. So I would, for me, because I'm so OCD, I like at least consistency and I like knowing what I'm getting. And so I still at least have the look of the fabric, but it is stiff. And I don't want you to know differently. I want you to know that it is very stiff. You want to make sure that you take the Mod Podge all the way to the edges or even over. Do not stop short. And also, it takes a really long time to dry. I would suggest just leave it alone and let it dry overnight. After it completely dried, I went in with my box cutter in order to cut it / more like score it. It didn't really cut through it very well, but it really did give it a good scoring, and so that I was able then to go in with scissors and then to really kind of trim it out. The box cutter actually works better on the red than it did on when I got to the gray and the white one, but it did a great job. And I actually preferred using the box cutter first than going straight in with scissors. That way I was able to get exactly where I wanted my lines to be. It was kind of, again, going back to that OCD nature of mine, this is just the way I wanted to. If you want to go straight in with scissors first, by all means, you just do you. Anyway, if you have some of that Mod Podge over those edges, it will be a little bit stiffer and you'll have a really clean cut. I'm going to let you know that. And it does make for a really pretty cut. So here are a few of the items that I'm using to decorate the ornaments. I got these trees from Dollar Tree. They come in this 2-pack. And then I'm using this truck that I got from Dollar General. I separated this because I stepped on it. My craft room, or my craft area, was such a mess that I didn't notice it. So that was a fun moment. I actually was just in Dollar General and I saw another one of these and snagged it because I have a feeling that I have a friend that's going to wish they had this, so I had to pick up a second one. I just used my box cutter in order to remove those little wooden pieces at the very bottom. At first I went in with the base of it to give me a straight line so that I wouldn't go too far in onto the tire, and here I am trying to score it. Actually, all I ended up doing was taking my blade and pressing down, and then they came straight off that way. I then just used a piece of sandpaper and just smoothed it out so that I would just have a nice clean edge. I decided to do a very neutral truck this time, so I'm going in with Waverly's Wax and Antique. This wax was not intended to be a paint. It's a wax, but I love using it kind of like a stain, and it's such a beautiful color. As you can see, I brush it on and then I wipe off any of the excess. I use it just like I would a stain. I use the straight edge of the base in order to separate the tree from the truck. If you don't need this, then you can skip this step, but I am a little bit of a messy painter, so I needed a straight line to make sure that I didn't get green onto my truck. The green that I'm using is Apple Barrel's Arbor Green. I'm only painting one coat. I'm actually okay if a little bit of that brown comes through. It just gives it a really pretty rustic feel, which is exactly what I am going for. So I'm using Waverly's chalk paint in white in order to paint the inner tire. I'm using Waverly's chalk paint in ink for the outer tire. Now I'm going in with Waverly's chalk paint in Elephant. This is for the hubcaps as well as for the light covers, and I'm just lining those areas out. I get questions all the time, why chalk paint over acrylic paint? And it really is from project to project, or for me from color to color. I really happen to like chalk paint. I like the way that it lays down, but sometimes I do enjoy using acrylic paints as well. To give separation between the tree and the truck, I'm using a bamboo skewer, and I'm just marking out the length of the truck bed. And then I'm going in with my Dollar Tree hacksaw. I haven't pulled this out in a while, and just trimming that off. After I have it trimmed off, I do go in with some sandpaper, and on both sides of the bamboo skewer, I kind of round the edges just a little bit and make them smooth. And then I go in with the Waverly's Wax and Antique again and paint over that and give it that same color as the rest of the truck. I will go in just a little bit and glue that and attach that to the truck once it dries. I decided that my paint was a little bit too harsh on the edges where the colors were coming together, so I went in with a 220 sandpaper and just distressed it ever so slightly. I really love how this just kind of pulled it together and took a little bit of that paint off. While I had the antique wax out, I went ahead and painted the top of the ornament with that, and it gave it just a beautiful bronze look. When it was time to start assembling my ornament sign, I used some hot glue to attach the top on and then hot glue to attach the truck. Now, I did go in with some wood glue in order to attach that bamboo skewer onto the truck. I really like to use wood glue when I'm doing wood on wood. I just think that it works the best and it will last the longest. I am also using some Dollar Tree rope in order to trim out the ornament. I hot glue that onto the outer edges, and I really love the effect that it gives. It really frames the entire ornament. Now I'm going to create a bow, and I'm going to do my very best to explain to you what I do. It is the simplest thing, so luckily you can also see what it is that I'm doing. I just take a piece of burlap, I fold it in half, and I hot glue it together. I take a second piece of burlap, and I repeat it. I fold it in half, hot glue it together, so I create 2 loops, and then I just use a piece of twine and I tie them together. I then take a third piece of burlap and I lay it right underneath it. I then take a piece of twine to that third piece so that it has that little puckered center. And then I'm able to hot glue the little bows to that third piece together. I decided that I wanted to put a piece of rope around the center to tie into the rope that goes around the edges. So I just took a small piece and I hot glued that down in the center. And then once I knew that was nice and secure, I went ahead and I ducktailed the edges, or fishtailed the edges, by cutting from the edge of I fold over the edge of my ribbon and then I cut up towards the center, and that gives it that perfect V shape. And then I just use some hot glue in order to secure my bow onto my ornament. And then this one is completely done. And I think it is so stinking cute. I love it. If you know me, I absolutely love these little farm trucks. You might be a little surprised that it didn't make it red, but I really love it. It's that soft, neutral look. I just adore this. For the last project, I wanted to share with you a couple ideas. So using these tree ornaments, you can put 3 trees on an ornament, and I think this looks so cute. Now I'm going in with just 1 tree and then the metal word piece that comes in that 3-pack of metal words. What I think would be ideal is if you had 2 ornaments, one that has a 3 trees and another one that says piece with the 1 tree. I think they would just complement each other so well, and it would just be absolutely beautiful. So earlier I mentioned that using the super glue was not a good idea. I wish I would have used E6000. So that is what I'm using here. So to use E6000 correctly, you want to go ahead and put it on what you're going to be using it on, and then you want to wait another 2 to 3 minutes before you actually place that item down so that the glue can get a little bit tacky first, and then you won't have it slipping and sliding around. Now, with this specific project, I wouldn't necessarily have that because it's more of a cloth project. It has a little bit of a grit. But if you're ever putting it on something that has more of a slick surface, you absolutely want to make sure that you give it that 2 to 3 minutes to get tacky. Once everything has had that 3 minutes to kind of get tacky, you can go ahead and lay them down. On the tree, I did decide to go ahead and use just a little bit of hot glue to also just kind of make sure that it stayed where it needed to. Again, I don't really think this is a necessary step. I just thought I would do it to be a little extra careful on just a few of the branches, nowhere where I put the E6000. Now, I do leave this alone again for like a 24-hour period just to make sure that the E6000 has complete time to cure before I do anything. And then this sign is completely ready. I did not give it any trim, but I'm curious what you would think. Give me some suggestions as to what trim you would put on this, because I kind of think that it really could still use some. But I do think it is absolutely still beautiful. I just think one more little element wouldn't hurt it. I know this is one of my longest videos, and if you made it all the way to the end, you are a champion, and I absolutely appreciate it. I want to know which one of these 5 happens to be your favorite. So let me know that in the comments below. I want to thank Top Cashback again for sponsoring today's video. Don't forget to check their link below. Right now they are offering you a $10 sign-up bonus after you spend your first $25, and you don't want to miss out on that. Also, if you enjoy budget decor, easy DIYs, and you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, make sure that you do so that you can become a part of my DIY family. I would love to have you here. I hope that you are having a fantastic week, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye.